This evening once again by
Mike Atchison.
And this is the podcast for Campus Comics. Campus Comics is located at 816 East Main Street, Suite B in Carbondale, Illinois. And you can reach the store if you can't drop in. If you just want to contact them online, you can reach Mike No through Facebook just by messaging the Campus Comics fan page on Facebook. Or you can call the store. The phone number is 618-457-6011. The store is currently open at physical. Just, be sure you wear your mask if you're coming into the store just to play it safe. The store is open Tuesday to Saturday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I guess that's enough for the intro. And what we're going to talk about on this episode of Campus Comics Cast is we're going to discuss a couple of upcoming shows. We have Snyder's Justice League that's coming out real soon, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. As we record this, Justice League starts tomorrow, the 18th of March, and Falcon and Winter Soldier starts Friday, the 19th of March. And then we're going to talk about Immortal Hulk, Volume 1, which covers issues 1 through 5. And then we're going to go a little bit of detail, not super deep detail, on our thoughts on WandaVision, now that we both have watched and finished that. So, Mike, you want to add anything before we dive into the agenda?
No, I'm pretty stoked about talking about what's coming up and what we've read recently, and right. I'm ready to dive right in.
Okay, so I guess the first thing I said we're going to talk about is a couple of upcoming releases. First, we're going to have Zack Snyder's Justice League releasing to HBO Max. Now, I'm just going off of memory on this, but I believe this is going to be released over 4 subsequent weeks. 1 hour each week, and the first hour of Snyder's Justice League will come out tomorrow. So I guess the first question is Mike, are you looking forward to this at all?
I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago or a couple of podcast episodes ago, and I was moderately excited, but I'm more excited now. Originally it was more like, okay, I'm just looking for some redemption. Anyone that knows me knows I'm a DC, especially a Justice League guy. Not necessarily every iteration of Justice League, but in general, the Justice League in the satellite era. I was really very just dejected to see the treatment that Snyder's original movie that was taken over by Joss Whedon, and it looked like a hodgepodge event. I think both of them maybe had some redeeming qualities, but together they were just horrible. So a lot of cringe-worthy moments, and me thinking that's not what Batman would do, and that's not what Flash would do or whatever. But I'm hoping for a little bit more cohesive presentation of what the Justice League is about. I read something that popped up on my feed today that said this is really not, this is mostly a new movie, and that and I think it was someone, posting, I guess they had an early view or viewing of the show, and I think it was Marv Wolfman, in fact, and he was lauding the show, or at least the first episode, which, what did you say, an hour-long episodes, right?
I assume they're going to be approximately an hour. The things that I remember reading were that it was going to be about 4 hours long. They were going to be approximately 4 1-hour episodes.
So he was talking good about at least whatever he's seen, whether it was the first hour-long episode or the full thing, I'm not sure. But that makes me more excited. He was talking specifically about the treatment Cyborg got, which is, he's a creation of Marv Wolfman. And so, yeah.
Vastly powered up since his creation by Wolfman.
Oh, yes. The whole, he was, I mean, I definitely like the Wolfman version better as far as his costume or his design, which obviously wasn't just Wolfman. It was largely probably Perez, but the current or the contemporary version of Cyborg basically only shows a little bit of human skin, just basically on his face. I like the idea that he had one original leg and maybe one, parts of his arms and stuff,
Right.
and shoulders or whatever. I know, yeah, he had the short onesie look, but that was the 80s.
Yep.
We all wore short shorts, basketball, whatever.
Nope.
So, okay. Yeah. And now I'm visualizing Scott like refusing to wear those cutoff jeans back. But what really got me is in the original Justice League movie, they had him in that crinkly aluminum foil looking metal. And I think I learned later that it was supposed to be a development that, that first costume design was just because his dad didn't have it fine tuned yet, and it was going to get better. But and I think even in the last scene, maybe we've seen it smooth out and look more refined.
Yeah, I've been holding off on rewatching Justice League just because I want to see the Zack Snyder version. I'm definitely a bigger fan of Zack Snyder than I am of Joss Whedon. It's unfortunately for me, one of the things that's kind of I'm still looking forward to this, but just the whole what's going on in DC has been a little soured for me here lately, with all the name calling going on back and forth between like Ray Fisher and Warner Brothers and Whedon and all that stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know, that's kind of wearing on me a little bit, and nobody's being very specific, about what happened or whatever. So I have to try to not let that, sour the experience for me. But I'm definitely looking forward to this. I'm hoping to see more Nightmare Batman and black costume Superman. Those are the two characters that I enjoyed the most from this modern version of Justice League. Henry Cavill is my Superman, and I saw the Christopher Reeve version in the theater, and I still take Cavill over Christopher Reeve, which is sacrilegious to a lot of people. I hope that he gets another shot to wear the costume. But I am I'm going to be watching it very quickly after it starts. I don't know if it starts at midnight tonight or how HBO. I got to get online and figure that out, because technically, we're 6 hours away from midnight, so we could actually watch that in as little as 6 hours if we wanted to, depending on when HBO Max actually releases it. So
right. Yeah, I mean, I think the individual treatments of most of the Justice League was anywhere from moderate to good. I know there's only one character you and I really differ on opinion distinctly, and that's the Flash. And what's the actor's name? I forget. Soon as I bring it up,
Ezra Miller.
Ezra Miller, yeah. I kind of like his wit, even though to me it's more of a Wally West and not a Barry Allen. But I'm not as put off by that as I was the mischaracterizations of Batman and Justice League. Batman by himself with, I think Affleck, he looked like a good Batman. Just his age didn't match up with what I think a Justice, in the beginning of the Justice League should be. So again, I think that was just a misstep whenever they decided to use the Dark Knight Batman, the older guy, in the Justice League. But whatever. I just think that maybe I probably will rewatch the extended release version of Justice League before I watch the Snyder Cut, just to maybe draw some contrast.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know that it's okay. My understanding is that Whedon filmed about 76 minutes of additional footage. So that movie was, I don't know, 2.5 hours long.
Yep.
Yeah. So that means, about half of it was Whedon and about half of it was Snyder, roughly, but we're getting 280 minutes of let's see, was it 240 minutes, I guess, of Zack Snyder, and I don't know how much of the 76 minutes of Whedon he'll use. Probably the less the better is my suspicion, because you have two very distinct tones. Snyder is I consider Snyder very intense and very serious with his work primarily, and Whedon's kind of a ha-ha, joke type, and you can, like, when Batman's rolling on the ground, after Superman comes back. I mean, that just scene it just has Whedon all over it, and it's just so different from what the Snyder stuff is. It just that, like, is the one that's just, like, so obvious. It's like, oh my gosh.
It's almost like I mean, Whedon, I don't want to make this the Justice League podcast, but it's almost like Whedon went out of his way to do that, and that really frustrated me. All he had to do was to me, if you're a director picking up the pieces, it's not like Snyder left for no good reason.
Right.
He had family reasons, and
I'm gonna go that the reason that they picked Whedon was because of his, there was success with the Avengers, and there were these little ha-ha funny moments. And I wouldn't be surprised if some higher ups at Warner Brothers says, "Oh, we need some of that."
Sure. Yep.
And it's kind of crazy. It's like, what, Man of Steel made, like, what, $750 million, but because it wasn't a $1 billion movie, it wasn't considered successful. That's just like, I don't understand that thinking. They didn't lose money on that movie. They made a pretty decent sum on that movie. So they thought, so it was like, Coke and New Coke, like Coke was dominating Pepsi, but to get that other 2% of the market, let's make New Coke.
They got greedy.
Like Pepsi, exactly. And I think that's what it is that, when Snyder had to step away, they brought in somebody who was just almost opposite, and it really shows up in that original film. So I'm looking forward to hopefully a single vision, of what the Justice League would have looked like. So I'm outside of the other stuff going on with Warner Brothers and some of the cast and directors, I'm, if I could just focus on the movie, that's going to be good.
The only thing could have made it a little bit better is if they somehow found footage with a Green Lantern in it. Oh my gosh! Because one of the opening sequence, I think, of the original Justice League was showing, the apocalypse. You had the parademons and stuff, and there was a Green Lantern that was in that scene. You could tell, and that would have rounded it off pretty good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it too, and I'll have some time this weekend to watch it. So
at least the first hour or so, and then also, so you're gonna have plenty of comic book stuff to watch this weekend. Because we are also getting, I assume, just the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now I'm trying to confirm this before I say it out loud, but as I was reading through, I saw that this is only going to be 6 episodes.
Yes.
Okay, so that. Good. All right.
Right.
So
they're dropping.
Kind of surprised me.
Yeah, they're dropping only the first one on the 19th.
Okay.
And then it's one at a time from there on out. It's not like WandaVision where they dropped 2? The first.
Did they?
I'm pretty sure they did.
I just don't remember. I don't think they did. I think they just dropped 1, but who knows? Okay. I'm used to, like, Amazon. Amazon, like, when I watched The Expanse this year, they dropped the first 3 episodes on release day, and then episode. So
yeah, I just remember thinking I'm glad they dropped the first 2 of WandaVision at the same time, because I wanted to get through that, even though we didn't, because we just decided to stop. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But at least with Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's going to be 1 at a time and only 6. I don't know how long they're going to be, though.
I would assume they're going to be that 50-minute, approximate 50 to 60 minutes, especially with there only being 6 episodes.
Yes, and doesn't that make sense? I mean, I was one thing about WandaVision I liked. Again, jumping ahead a bit, but at least they didn't have to. They didn't say we're going to make this 30 or 45 or whatever. Mm-hmm. They made it what it needed to be, and
they're not worried about releasing that to in syndication, because they're making the assumption their streaming service is going to be around indefinitely and that they will need that content on there for a long time. So so that is good, because it's you can actually tell the story you want to tell for that episode and either not fill it to make it fit or not remove important things to get it into that time frame. So
so what are your thoughts about Falcon and Winter Soldier, Scott?
I have not watched any of the trailers for this. So I am going into this basically blind. I like Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie quite a bit. Now, I haven't seen. There's really nothing else that I've seen Sebastian Stan in besides, the Marvel movies. I've watched Anthony Mackie in a couple other shows like Altered Carbon, and he was in an episode of Black Mirror, and they were okay. The Altered Carbon just wasn't great. I don't know if that was a reflection on Anthony Mackie or not. So I'm wondering about his ability to carry a show. So this will be a good test for me. And then the same goes for Sebastian Stan, because like I said, I haven't seen him in anything else.
Right.
Though I guess we do have the rumors now that he's going to be playing Luke Skywalker.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. So, but I was actually happy to see that Sharon Carter was going to show up here, because I did see one of the posters where we got Sharon Carter pretty prominently featured. And then, of course, Baron Zemo is returning. So I guess they're going to tie back into Civil War, Captain America Civil War, that particular movie.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming this is going to be a Tom Clancy style action, series. So, and I think that sounds good for these two characters, especially with the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I think, based on a headline I seen earlier today, it said that it's the antithesis of WandaVision storytelling, meaning it's not going to be rife with plot or theories of Easter eggs and what's going to happen and who's behind it all. It's not going to be all that. It's going to be just straight up action. So I think that's a good way to rotate these shows, and it'll be a good variation from WandaVision.
Yeah. So, and that's what Marvel, I think what has made Marvel so successful. And I know I come back to this all the time, but they aren't just locked into doing superhero movies.
Yes.
Winter Soldier, which is my favorite of all the Marvel cinematic. That's just a good spy movie, period. You got Ant-Man, which is a bank heist movie.
Yes.
Then you got Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is a car chase movie, and you've got Doctor Strange, which is just your sword and your sorcery movie, and they have the action movies and the superhero stuff, so they got a really, really nice mix. And that's something that DC just has not done yet. So
DC's so far behind, and because they're behind, they make mistakes trying to catch up.
Yeah,
they should never have done the Justice League when they did it. They could have waited 5 years, and
it just shows you it was so smart of Marvel just to bring that all in house so that they could take their time with, And I always go, it goes back to like in the, I don't know, I can't remember what it was. This was prior to the passing of Jack Kirby. Marvel got bought for like $2 million at the time.
Yeah.
Which obviously was a lot of movie back then, but there's I don't know if this is an authentic quote or not, but I've heard some people say that, Jack Kirby said, well, Ant-Man's worth more than $2 million. Yeah. And implying that, one of their smaller characters was worth more than what that company. And he obviously, if he said that, then he was obviously proven right over and, hundreds and hundreds of times over. So, But I'm definitely looking forward to this, and it's going to be something I will be, watching Friday, either as soon as I get up or again checking to see if it kicks on at midnight Thursday night. So maybe what I'll do is Thursday night I'll just start at 12 and watch Snyder Cut, and then switch over and watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, and just go to bed about 2 or 3 in the morning. And
you're a better man than I am. I'll have to wait till probably mid-morning on Friday, or Saturday. No, because I have to be Saturday. But either way, yeah.
You're not gonna stay up till 2 or 3, so I probably won't either. No. But it'll cross my mind. So
now, the only movie, and this is going back a long time, Batman, the movie, 1989. My wife and I went to the midnight showing the night before its release, and down in Carbondale.
Well, you should have. I saw the midnight release of all the Lord of the Rings movies. And those start at midnight, and Return of the King was like a 3-hour long movie. So
that was the last one, right?
That's the last one. Yeah. It's like 3:30 in the morning.
Dude, that is so cool. And I subjected my wife and daughters before we went to go see The Return of the King. I made them watch all the other 2 episodes or shows, movies, before we would go to the movie. So we watched the first 2 at home. So that day we watched close to 9 hours of movies.
The funniest thing, and then I'll get off of the topic of Lord of the Rings, is I'm pretty into Lord of the Rings. I had 2 buddies that went with me, and one of them, he's read the books, but I guess, I don't know, he just doesn't like being up, I guess, at 3 o'clock in the morning. And at the end, they kind of have that where everything goes black and you think the movie's over, and then it comes back. Almost like a post credits, but it's before the credit scene, and then it goes black again, and then it comes back for more. And he literally, whenever that second one happened, he was like, "Oh my god!" out loud in the entire theater because he was just ready to be done.
I bet.
So if you could only watch one, which one you watching? Justice League or Falcon and Winter Soldier? Fortunately, that's not something we have to worry about. But if you could only watch,
well, that's not fair. I mean, I think you already know it'd have to be the Justice League. I said earlier, that's my jam. I mean, I've collected the entire run of the Justice League over the past 40 years or so. So, does it meet my headcanon or my expectations always? No. In fact, very rarely, but that's okay. It would have to be that if I had to choose between the 2. But, it'd be a sad choice. I'd be really sad if I couldn't see Captain and Winter Soldier.
So Falcon and Winter Soldier.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. What'd I say, Captain?
Yeah. So, but okay. We're assuming that Sam Wilson's got the shield.
Yes.
Right. And me being the Marvel guy, I'm definitely going to choose Falcon and Winter Soldier. Though if Justice League focused more on Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and not so much on Flash and Aquaman, then it would be a much more difficult decision for me. So,
well, now, real quick, I already know. It's the actors, it's not the characters with Flash and Aquaman, correct? It's not even necessarily
the. I'd say it's more the writing, how Aquaman is written and how Flash is written. I don't like this version that they are putting in the movies of Flash. Ezra Miller, who knows if he's a good actor or not? Maybe if he's portraying Flash as he's been told to portray the character, then great. But I don't like this version of the Flash.
Right.
And with Aquaman, I like the noble Aquaman. I do not care for this, surfer dude Aquaman that they're giving us. And I think they're writing that character. They wrote this version of Aquaman to fit Jason Momoa.
Yep.
So that's my biggest gripe. It's almost certainly writing with Aquaman.
That's why the last 30 minutes of the Aquaman movie, I liked way better than the rest of it. So,
and I just was so, you knew that whole Karate Kid moment was coming, because literally that writing is so, I don't want to get off on a tangent. The writing is just so bad. They just stole from all kinds of other movies, and just like, it was just bad writing.
Sorry, folks. We promised not to talk about Aquaman until The Trench comes out.
So, okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Immortal Hulk.
Oh, man.
Now, one thing I think we need to talk about briefly before we jump into Immortal Hulk is actually a little backstory on the character, and you can get a lot of this backstory if you find a copy of Avengers number 684, because this is the quote unquote first appearance of the Immortal Hulk. And it's really just like the first half of the issue focuses in, but this is where we are introduced to the Green Door. Okay, is in Avengers 684, which becomes important for that series. So this was partly written by Al Ewing, who does Immortal Hulk, but this is where Bruce Banner actually comes back to life, because what had happened previously is Bruce basically, they kind of show like all these different times that the Incredible Hulk or Bruce Banner has died. They kind of have this recap. Like there's one where, and I got to figure this out, where somebody cuts off the Hulk's head with Captain America's shield. It's like I don't remember that. I need to track that instance down. And each time he quote unquote dies, he comes back. So they basically, are going through this history of the character where he sits down with Clint Barton, Hawkeye, and says, hey, here is a specially formatted arrow that if you shoot me at the base of the brain, it will kill me. And by the way, here's a second one in case you're off a little bit on the first one, and if you get me with the first one, then put the second one through my heart just in case. I mean, to literally make for sure that he dies and stays dead. But here in Avengers number 684, he basically, and it's through Dr. Voodoo, is actually tied to the origins of the Immortal Hulk. It'll be interesting to see if Dr. Voodoo makes it back in some of the last issues of Immortal Hulk whenever we get there. But it kind of goes through these, like I said, this goes through how the Hulk died repeatedly, and then how he was supposed to have been killed, and how now, even after this way that Bruce Banner was convinced would actually kill him, kill the Hulk, it didn't work, and he still was able to find a way back, and thus we're introduced to the concept of the Immortal Hulk, and that's in Avengers 684. So,
now you said the Green Door. Is that a new or an old?
As far as I know, that's first introduced in this issue of Avengers 684, to my knowledge.
Okay. So I thought it was back farther, but I'm not the Marvel guy. I just thought I had to get in my head that's what it was. Yeah.
Maybe there is an origin to that further back, but I don't recall reading about the Green Door prior to that particular issue. Yes. And I actually didn't remember until I went back and reread Avengers 684. I didn't even remember it being in that issue of Avengers, because it's kind of like one of those things where you see the door and there's like one word balloon in that panel, so it's like you read it real quick and you go on to the next panel when you read comics panel by panel. And sorry, now I lost my train. I didn't remember those panels from the comic, and I thought the Green Door was it first introduced in Immortal Hulk number 1, but so it's at least predates the series in Avengers 684. And could it go further back? I guess it's possible. If it does, I don't know where. So
it's a very interesting concept, but yeah.
So, but anyway, so you kind of have do you have like a issue by issue quick synopsis, or?
I just took some my own notes, mingled them with stuff I read online, just for some context. And it's very, just so you listening audience know, just so you know, we're not going to do this vigilante style. We're not going to give this happened, then this happened, then this happened. We're going to minimize the synopsis for each issue. And then one of us will do that. And then one of us will maybe take over on the comments, or we'll mix it up a little bit. But the point is, it's not going to be a very protracted affair with summarizing the issue. So I think that'll hopefully make it the process go a little bit smoother. So Immortal Hulk Volume 1, and this is issues 1 through 5, and it's written by Al Ewing. And I used to think of Al Ewing as the ultimate bench guy. He always seemed to go in and finish off a series. It just seemed like he was good, but he was not like never prime time. But man, you want to talk about a way to make him prime time and maybe get some respect that he deserved all along. It's written by him. The penciler is Joe Bennett, another industry favorite. I don't know the inker. I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's Ruy Jose. I don't know him by reputation or anything, but whatever his contributions are to this series is really good. The first issue is called Or Is He Both? And the first scene is a real grabber. Bruce Banner, he's driving up, he stops at a gas station, and he sees basically a young girl that goes into the store killed by a robber. The robber had pulled the gun on the cashier and demanded, give me your money type of thing. And when he hears a noise, just the girl, I guess, banged the door or something, he turns around and sees her. Oh, she dropped some bottle, a soda bottle or something. He turns and shoots her in the chest, kills her. It was, tragic and riveting and sad and all of that. And Banner, he starts to get angry, and he's in his.
And you won't like him when he's angry.
No, of course not. And he too is shot and killed. And you're thinking, well, that was a short series, So he shot right between the eyes or in the forehead or whatever. But anyway, hours later, after the sun sets, which is key to this story, Banner's corpse is in the morgue, and he begins to transform to the Hulk. And then later, the original robber of the convenience store gas station, he's back at the motorcycle gang's clubhouse. I guess he was a probate type member. The gang's called the Dogs of Hell. And folks, I've worked in a lot of prisons, and I can tell you that sounds like a typical biker gang stupid name. So anyway, they're at this Dogs of Hell clubhouse, and he tells the leader of the gang, how much money he got. But the leader says, you know what, you need to get more. And about that time, our quote unquote hero, Bard, busts through the wall, and he basically just crashes through and, crushes the gang. So what's his name? I forget the guy's name that was the robber. He tries to flee, but he comes face to face with the Hulk, and the Hulk tells him the name of the girl that he killed and that she was 12 years old. And, the Hulk, this is what makes it interesting to me, because I've seen not a bunch. I haven't read a whole lot of Incredible Hulk or Immortal Hulk, but you see sometimes Hulk as the not so intelligent character, and sometimes he's very intelligent, and he reminds me of the Solomon Grundy. They kind of, every reincarnation of Solomon Grundy is a little bit different, but anyway, this one is intelligent and devious and cruel.
Yeah.
Appropriately cruel. Yeah. So he's basically telling her, how does that gun feel in your hand? And, what would you think it would feel like to have that kind of weapon unleashed on you? This guy begs for his life. And the Hulk, I thought he was going to kill the guy, but he basically crushes every bone in his body and leaves him in the parking lot of the hospital. And then basically the next day, which is our transition to the next story, next issue, a reporter named Jackie McGee interviews Detective Gloria Mays, and they speculate on Banner being able to die, but maybe the Hulk can't, something like that. So, So, Scott, give me some context to this story, me being not the Marvel guy.
Context in what way, I guess, is okay.
Well, how does this differ from previous iterations of the character? I mean, he's not always been, he's top tier, but he's at the lower end of the top tier of Marvel.
The thing about, for me, now there are people out there who are huge Incredible Hulk fans. I like the Incredible Hulk, but I'm a person who is surprised that he has managed to have his own series for as long as he has. To me, I've always viewed the Incredible Hulk as better as a supporting character, just because of the fact that he has typically been portrayed as this not mindless, but lower level intelligent monster. Now, that's what has allowed the Incredible Hulk over time to become a whole lot more interesting. Is that we've had that stage like under Peter David where we had Professor Hulk, where we had Banner's intelligence in Hulk's body. And then we had, Joe Fixit, who's like kind of like the Gray Hulk, which is the original version of the Hulk,
Right.
So we had that Joe Fixit version that, kind of plays in. And now we've got a slightly different iteration of the Hulk where we have that cruel, as you said, a version of the character. I think what's interesting, at least for the first several issues of this series, is that this is really intended to be a horror comic. It really, to me, feels a whole lot like House of Secrets and House of Mystery, where except for you have Banner taking on the persona of Cain or Abel, whichever of those guys was in whichever particular book, except instead of Banner telling the story, Banner's part of the story. So it kind of does that. It does have that feel because here you have a bank robber, and you could put this in House of Secrets easy. Oh, a bank robber accidentally gets scared and kills somebody. He runs back and he gets followed to the gang hideout, and he gets punished for this thing that he did. It sounds just like a House of Secrets or House of Mystery story plot. So, but we are getting back to, at this point, we're kind of back to not quite the original version of the character, because when the Hulk first appeared, he wasn't green, he was gray, but he only became the Hulk at night. So now we're back here in previous incarnations of the Hulk. As soon as that kid was shot, he would have, you see his eyes start to go green, in one of the panels, and then he's dead on the floor. There are some writers who'd say, well, what would happen is he'd still turn into the Hulk and spit the bullet out, so it really depends a lot on how it's written. I do like this portrayal. It's kind of one of the reasons why I think there's only a handful of good Superman stories, because when you have somebody who's all powerful, it's like, how many things can you throw against him? They just have to get bigger and bigger, and it just kind of gets a little bit silly. So now we have a Hulk that has a slightly different power set, so we can get some interesting stories. I do like that, we have this wandering Bruce Banner, which kind of harkens back to the TV series.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and another thing that's previous versions of the Hulk, where here towards the end of the story where, he's getting shot at with bullets, they would just bounce off of him. But they are making, dents in his skin, right. So, if they were a little bit stronger bullet, there's, the definite possibility that this could have caused the Hulk some harm. So, so we're seeing a very different version of the Hulk here. And I guess like that finals panel where he's looking in the mirror and he sees the Hulk in the panel, it's like when it says, or is he both? Well, there you got the man and the monster, in that same scene. So
that's a great panel too.
Yeah. So it's definitely a great first issue for this series. So
for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess that's all I had for the first issue.
Yeah, that's like I said, I mean, I'm sure everybody listening has heard about how good this series has been. So we're probably not telling you anything about it. We're just maybe giving you a little bit of insight as to the storyline, and maybe even if you've read it and you read it already, and you can kind of have your own thoughts as we go along. You can always put that information, out to our Campus Comics email or feed or whatever. The Walking Ghost is the name of the next issue 2, and there's a quote on the cover. I don't know if I'm looking at the digital version, Scott, but it says, "All that a man hath, he will give for his life," from Job 2:4.
Yep. Inside, probably the first actual page of the comics will actually be the first page of the book. I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
like the splash page. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And it depicts our antagonist in the episode, who's also gamma infected, but he looks more like Dr. Phosphorus because he's sort of translucent. You can see his skeleton and stuff, but he's green. And it's you'll see as the story progresses why that quote is so important. So the Walking Ghost starts out with Bruce Banner being on a bus bound for a town in Colorado, and as he's looking out the window, he notices on the side of a mountain a glow in a cave or something. He he feels this itch in the back of his skull, and gets off at the next stop, and we'll hear about this itch again, sort of like an intuition. But he stops at a restaurant, and he orders some breakfast, and he wonders what his old friends are up to as he eats. And what I really liked about that scene is that, when you are in a situation like Bruce Banner, there's very few really enjoyable moments in your life. And I could see eating some bacon and eggs at a diner being like, oh, this is so good, and just a break from the craziness of my life. But while he's in the town, he learns about some mysterious deaths at a grave site. And the grave belongs to a former college football player named Del Fry, who had suddenly died of a brain embolism. And upon hearing that Fry's father developed a new kind of radiation treatment, again, his skull started to itch. It's kind of like elongated man's nose twitching. Something's up here. That's your indicator. There's something to this. So Bruce visits Fry's grave, and he can tell that there's a presence of high amounts of gamma radiation, because he's Bruce Banner and he knows these things. So he places a call to the EPA sort of anonymously, or he tries to be, but he finally has to tell them, look, you can't, you're going to listen to me because I'm Bruce Banner. And of course, everybody's looking for him. So they all of a sudden pay attention. So Bruce continues to investigate. He climbs up the mountain where he saw the green glow. And at the top, or in the mountain, he finds in a cave full of corpses. When he finds the corpses, he's attacked by what we find out to be the glowing skeleton, which is Dr. Fry, the football player's father, who had, basically they fight. Fry is able to snap Bruce's neck. And once again, almost immediately, Bruce transforms into the Hulk, pins Dr. Fry, and, he's like demanding to know what's going on. Again, using that intelligence, he says he can smell a liar. He says that a few times. And anyway, Fry begins to tell the story of his past. He says his wife had died, and he became obsessed with death, wanted to find a way to be immortal. So he developed a serum based on Bruce Banner's research, and he injected himself with the serum, and he felt rejuvenated, thinking, oh, yeah, I'm onto something. And he had the son, Del, was a football player, and he was worried that he would get brain damage playing football, so he used that as an excuse to give him some of the serum, but it didn't work out as well. Del immediately started bleeding from the eyes, green blood, by the way, and he having visions of a green door and all that stuff, and within seconds he died. And not too long after that, Dr. Fry actually started turning into the skeletal figure that's green glowing, and he went up and hid in the mountains. And he killed all the people that went up there, I guess, to find him. I'm not sure why those people came up there, but
I think some of them were accidental. They just were hiking, and come across him, right? I don't think they were deliberately up there looking for him. I think, and maybe some of them were, but I think the implication is that some of them were just happened to be hikers, and he couldn't let them know that anybody know he's there. So he felt he didn't have a choice but to kill him. So.
Yep. Yeah, I missed that point somehow, but yeah, so that wraps up that issue.
Yeah, it's another issue where it feels like this could have perfectly been a House of Secrets story, right? Where the guy, he's just doing experiments and and everything's going great. Oh, he's working on me, it'll work on my son. His son dies immediately, then he starts experiencing, and then he's starting to kill people. And what does he get? Well, he has, somebody comes along and not only, tells him he's doing something wrong, but removes his limbs and buries him alive, So yeah, sounds like a House of Secrets story to me. But again, Banner is, in the story as opposed to just, retelling the story.
Oh yeah, I forgot that last part where he removed his limbs. That was okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad ways to die, but being buried alive
Yeah.
is one of the worst. And I never even thought about it with your limbs torn off. So
Yeah.
that's
So there's not a whole lot of chance of getting out of that. And of course now they're I'm trying to decide. I assume that this last panel is where it is. This is where they dig up his son's body, because we have he's green and they're in radiation suits. So they realize they do come to the tip that Banner left that, hey, there's gamma radiation. You need to come do something about this. So they, you already mentioned, hey, the son, whenever he's, this happens to him, he mentions the green door, right? So, so we're seeing, hints back to the origin of the character. I don't recall them mentioning any green door in issue 1. And maybe they did, but they for sure mentioned it here in issue 2. Now, for some reason, and I still don't know why, this issue, like very shortly after its release, jumped significantly in value. And it's and the only thing here is it's the first appearance of Dr. Fry. Now, spoilers, we will see Dr. Fry again later. All right, he does make an appearance, but it's quite a long time before we see. Well, I guess we see him pretty quickly, but he really doesn't do a whole lot. This book, if I remember right, this had 5 printings. So this went back to print 5 times, I think. So there are lots of variants on that second issue of Immortal Hulk. You expect that on a first issue, but not so much on a second issue. So if you have this book sitting in your collection,
I did not know that Dr. Fry came back, but now I'm really interested to see how that turns out.
Well, you should have, because I think he's discussed in one of these upcoming issues. Not very significant reappearance, but he does show up. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe like I said, I did read through 6, so maybe it's 6 before we get that first reappearance of him.
Okay.
But I'll point it out if I notice it as we're going through the first 5 issues. So.
Okay. Cool. So issue 3 is called Point of View, and the splash page is a interesting perspective. It's the whole the camera view is pointing at the back of the Hulk, which has been blown wide open.
That is the cover. The words, the quote, I believe, is the splash page. So
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, well then the cover is really cool, and you can see the person that just shot the Hulk through the midsection, and we'll get into his name here in a second. So the story's told from the viewpoint of this reporter, Jackie McGee. And I didn't ask you earlier, Scott, but is she a character? Has she been around a while, or is she new to this series?
I think she's new to this series because she's just like a small town reporter who somehow gets thrust into being the news reporter of record for the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, and they must have a heck of a budget to send her all over the country tracking his appearances. Anyway,
well, I guess I should probably like Phoenix or something like that. So I guess not really small town.
I got you.
But yeah.
But she's not like a CBS News or CNN or whatever. She's some local network or whatever. Yeah. So Jackie McGee.
I think it's print media.
Yeah. Jackie McGee meets with 4 people: a cop, a bartender, an old lady, and a priest. And she's trying to get the full story about an incident that occurred at a church. And I don't know if you've ever seen Vantage Point, that movie, but that's what it reminded me of. So the cops.
I do like how each vantage point is done in a different art style.
Yes. I don't know who did who were the different artists.
Well, it's they don't say anything about different artists, so I wonder if it's just
Bennett just doing a different style.
Yeah, just doing a different style. So. No. Okay.
Keith Giffen.
Yeah. So the bartender story is Paul Horschmeyer. The old lady story is Marguerite Sauvage. The priest story is Gary Brown. Is that all 3 of them? I guess somebody else. One of those did I guess probably Joe Bennett did one of the others. So weren't there 4 stories?
Yeah, it was a cop, a bartender, or a cop, a bartender, an old lady, and a priest.
Priest. Who am I missing here? Bartender, old lady, priest. They don't say who did the cop story, so maybe Bennett did the cop story.
Maybe. Well, I'm not going to do I'm not going to speak to each version of the story. Just the basic synopsis is that the cops respond to a hostage situation at a church. Inside, they found a guy named Lou Lambert, whose alter ego is Hotshot. He's been around a while, I guess, or no? I don't know about this character, Scott.
I also think he's a new character. If he'd been in before, I'll look that up. If he'd been in before, it was just like a one-off or something like that. So,
well, it's weird because you see these, this first, the cops version, you see the artwork, and it's written, or the art looks like something out of the 70s or 80s, I guess. It just looks older.
Well, it's like Sunday print. Sunday cartoon print to me is what it reminds me of.
Yeah, it does. Anyway, Hotshot's a guy that can shoot lasers out of his fingers. Anyway,
shoots gamma out of his fingers.
Or gamma, right,
yes.
Right. So he uses his powers to shoot the officers. Banner is at a bar and notices these events unfolding on the TV, and he goes to the church. At the church, Hotshot's ranting to the priest about his girlfriend being possessed by the devil and demands the priest perform an exorcism on her. And about that time is when Hulk crashed through the church's stained glass window, and Hotshot begged the Hulk to help his girlfriend. Again, he's he's kind of playing this, pulling on sympathy here. But the Hulk basically responded by crushing Hotshot's hands. And Hotshot then is mad, and he blasts a gaping hole directly through the Hulk, a la The Cover. And everybody's horror, the wound simply healed itself shut. And Hotshot was like, okay, I'm in trouble now. And he says the Hulk was the devil, and then the Hulk knocked him out. So then Hotshot is arrested, and the cops and the priest go to the motel where Hotshot and Jess were staying, and they found the body of Jess tied to a chair. Remember, Jess is the girlfriend that he said was possessed, but she was actually dead with her head twisted around like her neck had been broken, and a peaceful smile on her face. And on the wall were written the words, what was it, Scott?
I'm sorry, I was looking up Hotshot. So
Green Door.
Green Door. There you go. All right.
Door. Now it's making me think of the Green Mile.
Yeah. Well, who knows if that's there's intended to be some reference, but I don't think so. But
no.
Okay,
Anyway.
So Hotshot, first introduced in Incredible Hulk number 345, created by Peter David and Todd McFarlane. So he's been around for a long time. I don't remember this character. Actually, he got his powers from the Leader, and was a member of the Riot Squad.
Okay. So no first appearance, but drawing from an obscure character here.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Hotshot, he eventually hangs himself in his cell. And there at the last scene, this reporter, Jackie, she gets a call from Walter Lankowski, Banner's college roommate and the superhero known as Sasquatch. From what group, Scott?
Alpha Flight.
Alpha Flight, yes.
Alpha Flight.
The Great White North. And anyway, Walt Lankowski wants to get in touch with his old roommate Banner, and he says he has something he wants to talk to him, or to look at, is what he says. And that's it.
So I do like that last panel where Walter Lankowski's on the phone, and he has that he's looking out a window, but we get the reflection in the mirror, and we see the Gamma Beast, staring him back, just like what we saw on the last panel of the first issue where Banner saw the Hulk, staring back at him. So
yeah.
Now this is, and I initially, when I read through this, I initially chalked this up to, it's the Gamma is what caused this problem, that somebody could actually blow a hole through the Hulk, because he's for the most part invulnerable. So I thought, that's just because of the Gamma, right? That's why it was able to hurt him. But as you mentioned, it healed really, really quickly. But they're focusing more in this series on the Hulk's ability to heal quickly as opposed to him just being invulnerable to everything, which is where
Right.
we get some of these gory, creepy sequences that if we had an invulnerable Hulk, they wouldn't be quite so
Sure.
creepy. So yeah.
And I like the choice. I like
Hmm.
it being like this. Not that he's invulnerable so much as he is able to recover with an extreme healing factor.
Yep. So I don't think I have anything else, but again, House of Secrets, right?
Oh man, for sure.
You know,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah, it's probably overstated now by this
mhm,
that this was meant to be horror, but it's so good you can't help but keep making that reference that this
yeah,
is.
yeah.
It's like mixing two genres in the best possible way.
Hmm. So yeah, really, really good.
All right, we ready for issue 4?
Yeah, I'm ready for issue 4.
All right. Now, this issue is called Time of Death, and it's a really cool cover. It's got Hulk basically one-handed, got a car in each hand, and he's running down a street, so running towards the viewer. So I like
Apparently,
that
after
cover.
coming across the overpass, where you can see where he jumped
Yeah.
down, busted down through the
Right.
overpass.
Yes. Yeah. The visuals with the Hulk's always good. So, Time of Death is basically leads off with reporter Jackie McGee waiting in an airport in Sioux Falls, waiting for this Walter Lankowski to arrive. When he does arrive, he introduces himself as Sasquatch. That's, he's pretty clear. There's no secret identity. And he says he's Canada's diplomat to space. Um, Jackie tells him that there's been a Hulk sighting just across the state line. And as the pair drive into Minnesota, um, he fills Jackie in on his past association with Bruce and his origin as Sasquatch. Basically, that he wanted to replicate Bruce's transformation, bombarded himself with gamma rays, and he says because this was up in Canada, so with the walls of reality being thin in the Arctic, the rays burst open the green door, allowing the great beast Tanarak to possess his body. Now, I don't know Tanarak. You want to tell us about that
I
character?
I can't speak to it specifically because that's not any of the issues that I read, but this is kind of like one of those kind of common stories where you have somebody who becomes something like Sasquatch,
Yeah.
and over time some writers said, "Oh, well maybe he's actually being possessed by the actual Sasquatch." So I
Okay.
believe this Tanarak is just a version of like a Sasquatch type spirit that had possessed
Okay.
him. So then, over the course of whatever story that took place in, he was able to get rid of that particular spirit and go back to just his traditional
Right.
Langowski Sasquatch uh, character. So, but now
Okay.
again, I haven't read that, so I'm just kind of making an assumption
Okay.
on what happened there. So,
Okay. Uh, Walter, he reassures Jackie that he's in control of his Sasquatch form, and they arrive at the scene of the Hulk's most recent sighting, but they don't find anything but the police and smashed cars. She tells Walter that they should look for a bar because that's where Bruce goes to get information, and they go to a bar called Trimpke's or Trimpy's
Chippies.
Burger and Beers, which
Mm-hmm,
of course that's a reference to Herb Trimpey. Or
mm-hmm.
um, the waitress tells Jackie that Bruce came in asking about a local meth dealer. Uh, as they're talking, a fight breaks out between two customers. Walter tries to break it up, and as he does, he gets stabbed in the back by one of them. And we know what's going to happen next. Uh, he is rushed to the hospital and is prepped for surgery. And, you know, actually, the reporter's wondering why Walter didn't change when he was attacked. Uh, while Walter's in surgery, Bruce shows up at the hospital, tells her that he tracked Walter's unique gamma signature. That's a good old comic book trope where you can track
Well,
signatures.
apparently he can smell it, you know.
Yeah, or
So
smell it. Yeah.
yeah.
Bruce kind of fills in the blanks to the reporter about Walter's gamma signature as being exactly like his own. And now that the sun has gone down and the night is his time, he warns Jackie they need to evacuate the hospital immediately because it's going to get bad. And sure enough, in the operating room, Walter flatlines. But before the surgeons can call time of death, he transforms into the Sasquatch, and he's not in control.
So whenever they're Walter and gosh, I've already forgotten the reporter's name.
Jackie McGee.
Jackie McGee are in. They're driving and talking. There's this scene where he talks about it opened something, a kind of door, right?
Yes.
And so we've got that reference to the green door again. So 3 out of 4 issues plus the Avengers 684, we're getting information about this green door. So if you haven't noticed it by this point, you're really not paying attention to the story, right? Okay. I can understand missing it once, maybe twice, but now we've got additional mentions. Yeah, exactly. So you can also tell that this version of Sasquatch is not the kinder, gentler version of Sasquatch that we had in Alpha Flight. So there's something a little bit more macabre about this particular version.
Yeah. He's got the big fangs. He definitely looks more feral.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a scary character anyway, but yeah.
He's more like a stuffed pet, in his earlier iteration in Alpha Flight. So
it's funny you say that. He reminds me of from Monsters Inc.
Mike Wazowski?
No.
One-eyed
little
Boo.
Monster. Yeah.
Yeah. the big blue one.
Talking about, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't think I have anything else to say about issue 4. It's
not my favorite of the issues.
But you've got to, we're bringing in this character. And I think one thing that you said before we started recording was that Walt was a little creepy.
Yeah.
And I think that was deliberate, and we're going to find out why in the next issue.
Yes.
We get a hint of it at the end, but where he turns into not quite the regular Sasquatch.
Yes.
So on to 5.
And this is our wrap-up issue for this first volume. Yeah. It's called In Every Mirror, and so we see in the very opening sequence is a flashback with Sasquatch meeting with Captain Marvel and Puck, other Alpha Flight members there in the space station, discussing his recent field work. Carol Danvers believes Walter has been acting unusually aggressive lately. She's concerned about him losing control. He assures her he's fine. I think one of the things she pointed out is that you never are in human form. You're always in your Sasquatch form. So when he does try to convert back to human form, he had a lot of difficulty in transforming. So he's kind of deceiving himself. Banner tells Jackie McGee, the reporter, to evacuate the hospital. We're back to real time, sorry. While he goes and deals with Sasquatch, Bruce finds Sasquatch standing over the corpses of 3 doctors licking their blood off of his claws. Again, if that's not horror story type stuff, I don't know what is. Bruce asks to speak with Walter, but Sasquatch tells him he's not Walter before slashing Bruce's throat. And it's like this is like the 3rd issue where Bruce is in the Bruce Banner persona. He's killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he falls to the floor, bleeds out, and then almost instantly, boom, turns into the Hulk and attacks Sasquatch. So no more getting mad. Pretty much you just have to die to convert. The Hulk deduces that Walter stayed in his Sasquatch form for too long, allowing whatever that's in him that's possessing him to enter through the green door. So again, with the green door.
Again, the door.
Yeah. So Hulk absorbs all of Sasquatch's gamma radiation, and it returns Walter to his human form. And that's over the course of several pages, really. So with the threat subdued, Hulk asks Jackie why she, as a reporter in a small-town newspaper, and maybe that's where you got the small town from, drove across several states just to find him. She tells him, and this is an interesting sequence, she tells him that when she was 15 years old, he destroyed her home and in her neighborhood in a rampage, and ever since she's had questions. And you're really thinking like she's going to ask, why did you do it? Why did you not care? Blah, blah, blah. And the Hulk basically allows her to ask one question quickly and tearfully. She says, how can she be just like the Hulk? So he looks at her kind of dumbfounded and tells her to just go home. Then Walter regains consciousness and tells Jackie he can no longer feel the Sasquatch in him and wonders where he went. The Hulk leaves the hospital, passes by a car in the parking lot, and in the window he sees not his own reflection, but Brian's staring back at him with a sneer. So let's see
All right.
here.
So for those who don't know, Brian would be Bruce's father.
That's right.
That was a very abusive relationship that those characters had. So something that always comes up with most writers and the Incredible Hulk is the idea of multiple personalities. And a lot of these multiple personalities stem from his abuse that he received whenever he was a child. So like the Hulk is just like his, primal desire to strike back at his father, and then we get these other iterations, which is sometimes like whenever we have Professor Hulk, it's because he's managed to deal with some of those traumas and, gotten to some normalcy. And, but one thing that you didn't mention was during that Hulk Sasquatch fight, whenever the Hulk actually has Sasquatch pinned up against the wall, he does look in some windows and sees a reflection. It doesn't see the reflection of Sasquatch, but sees a reflection of his father there as well.
Oh,
so yeah. So what we're coming to notice, and this I have the advantage of, this being I don't know, I think this might be the third time I've read this. So what it was apparently is that Bruce's father is somehow making himself known through this door, right? Yeah. So Sasquatch mentioned that he didn't feel what had come in from the door anymore. Well, that's because it wasn't in him anymore. It was apparently transferred over to Hulk.
Good catch. Good point.
Yeah. So you did mention that Sasquatch is immediately more vicious, and just kills Bruce outright, and also speaking to the Hulk's power set, Sasquatch's claws are able to actually penetrate his his hide. They basically show him sticking a claw in his eye.
Yeah.
And kind of gouging out his eyes, but Hulk fights blind for a little bit, and then a few panels later he's kind of back to normal, or not normal, but he can see again because of that regenerative power. And I am sure that they have touched on the idea of the Incredible Hulk absorbing gamma before. But it's really used. His ties to gamma feel like they're a much more important part of the story of this particular story than what they have been in the past. Yeah. But again, I haven't read a whole lot of Hulk, so I could be completely wrong about that.
Walter seems legitimately sad that he can't sense the Sasquatch anymore. Even after all of that, he's like, he's gone. I can't believe it. He's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Where did he go? And
well, because it was the thing that made him special.
Yeah, right. And that's his personality. He always wanted to be. He couldn't stand to have Bruce Banner or whatever be more cool or better than him.
He could, Banner outshone him in the lab, but he had to, do better on the football field or whatever the case was. So. So just a top-notch first five stories, and even the one that was kind of a little slower. When you read it all together, you do not feel like it was unnecessary. So, that's terrific.
It is. Yeah, I like the comparison you made to the 70s Hulk on TV. That's probably my biggest memory, of the Hulk. I don't know that I've read half a dozen Hulk issues in my life up until now, so I think I've probably doubled my Hulk reading just with this volume, but I'm
Well,
enjoying it so much.
yeah, I not including Immortal Hulk. I've read a fair amount of Incredible Hulk, but it was usually um, Intelligent Hulk. So like whenever Peter David took on, as
Yeah,
whenever I started reading Incredible Hulk, so I read through the majority of the Professor Hulk storyline. So the savage, not so intelligent Hulk is not something that I like to read. Whenever you have that version of the Hulk, he usually is a better supporting character than a main character.
right.
But here, now that we have at least even though he's, clearly, malicious, we have a somewhat intelligent. I think they even speak to, maybe it's in issue 6, and I may be jumping ahead just a little bit, where Banner talks about the fact that in some ways the Hulk is smarter than he is because Banner's still recovering from the brain damage that he got from the arrow from Clint Barton. So
Right.
um, there are certain things that he can't do anymore that he used to be able to. So that may be in the next issue because, like I said, I read the first 6.
And there's actually a preview of issue 6 at the end of the digital version of this volume. I don't know if it's in the hard copy, but there's 5 or 6 issues, and you can see that the Green Door is going to be explained a little bit more. So,
And I
yep.
am going to correct myself on something. So also as issue 6 is where Fry shows back up, but
Yeah.
it's not Dr. Fry, it's Mr. Fry. So that
Huh.
would be the son, not the doctor. So
Oh,
yeah,
you know what?
yeah.
Check this out, Scott. I was wrong. This is not a preview to issue 6. This is the Avengers 684.
Oh,
This is reprints some of that in
well, it's
this.
probably the part that I kind of did the synopsis of. So
Yeah,
okay.
it's showing Clint and shooting the
Okay.
arrow at his skull, and oh
hmm
yeah, okay, cool.
Did it say? Well, was it a different issue? What issue did it say it was?
It doesn't say. It just goes
Oh, okay.
from uh, it's got some visuals of the Green Door. I see some Avengers. I see Cap's shield taking off the Hulk's head.
Okay, so it is six. It is Avenger 684. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Okay, so so that's the story where the first appearance, quote unquote, of the Immortal Hulk.
gotcha.
So yeah.
Ah, how did I not even read that?
Well, you probably got through 5 and said I'm done.
I guess so. Yeah, that's like a nice little surprise. It's like dessert
Yeah,
here.
there you go. So
Oh gosh, you gotta see. Okay, on the last page or the second to last page of this reprint, it's got a panel of some character, and it's got a very clearly Jack Kirby design on this character's. Okay, I'll have to research this. We'll talk about it next
okay,
episode.
are you talking about Arnim Zola?
Maybe it looks like a robot.
It is. Okay, that's
And it's
Arnim
got.
Zola. Yep, Arnim Zola. So usually he has a television in his chest where you see a face.
Oh yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
it's kind of got. Yeah.
hmm Where
Okay.
Bruce is sitting on the table, kind of behind him.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's from Avenger 684. So.
Oh yeah, it's straight from Kirby. Okay.
hmm Yep. There you go. So.
All right.
Well, you wanna grade these first 5 issues?
Oh man. Um, I am going forward. I'm going to be a more. I can't really start necessarily with this because it's so good, but I'm going to be more reserved and conservative in my grading, so that I mean, you can't go like give them a score of 11 on a scale
Yeah.
of 10 because that's where we've been going after that Vigilante
hmm
series. But this to me is it's a near mint overall. There are some issues I'd say near mint plus, but I'd say mostly just around, overall near mint. And it's just an interesting, refreshing viewpoint or portrayal of an old favorite character. And I mean, I think the sales and the hype and everything is very much lived up to here.
Yeah. I try to put my gradings at like 6 is something that I'm glad I read, but I probably wouldn't read it again.
Yeah.
8 is something that I think I really, really enjoy. So 8 and over, that's something that I would read. potentially reread. And then when we get to like the 9+ range, now we're talking about books that are just like, stuff that I want to own and display,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So the first trade of this is definitely like a 9.6 for me in near mint. Because I bought the first volume, the nice hardcover volume that's got the first 10 issues of this, and I think I've got the second volume. I haven't picked up the third volume yet, but as those come out in these 10 issue volumes, I've been picking these up just to have them on my shelf.
Yeah.
Because occasionally I have people say, hey, I want something to read. It's like, I had a friend the other day. It's like, I need something to read. It was like, have you read Thor? It's like, no, I haven't read the Jane Foster Thor stuff. Here it is off my shelf, because
there you go.
That's one that I really, really enjoy. And this is one that, I buy a lot of my trades, not so much either just to show them off and also to share them.
Right.
I have a copy of Immortal Hulk #1, but it's a graded copy, so obviously I can't hand that to somebody to read.
Right.
And even then, I probably wouldn't be passing out single issues of these just because there's some value associated with those. But It's not a big deal to hand somebody a trade and say, here, read this.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is definitely a 9.6. I think I think let's see, 9.6. That's near mint plus. I got to remember my grades, because you have Gem Mint is 10. Mint.
I was thinking
10. 9.9 is mint plus. 9.8 is near mint plus, or near mint. Oh gosh. 9.6 is near mint plus. 9.4 is near mint. 9.2 is near mint minus. Whew, I think I got that right. So 9.6 is near mint plus, and this first story arc is there and I own it sitting on my shelf, so I'm glad I do. So
yeah, you got it right. Yep.
Okay. At least I'm in the ballpark on it anyway. So
I mean, most of my comic collecting career, I went by the mint, near mint, very fine. I there weren't any distinctions, or gradations between them.
It's tough sometimes to remember all those slight variations. So, all right. Well, are we gonna move on to WandaVision?
Sure. I think we can do a quick review of it. Okay. I mean, it's one of those shows that, since it was episodic, I feel like I need to rewatch it to be able to have a full commentary. I remember the later issues. I don't remember the whole thing as well as I should, and I think over the next week or two, I'm going to try to rewatch the whole thing.
Yeah, I wanted to sit down and watch this again before we talked about it, and I did not get around to it. So, so I'm kind of in the same boat. But I did definitely enjoy it.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. I haven't. I think I mentioned this to you off air, that my litmus test for good superhero shows is whether my wife likes them. And
so you're saying a show that your wife doesn't like, you wouldn't consider good?
I would say maybe not is. I don't mean good, but I mean accessible.
There you go.
Yeah. So because that's like why the Wonder Woman 84 she liked. I did not, but it was because it was accessible to laypersons, because it was a rom-com, wasn't as deep, it wasn't, but anyway, my point is I was so glad she liked it, because I was loving it, and it had just enough superhero-y cool stuff that and it was also a good love story. I mean, talk about two characters that were meant to be a couple. Yeah. I also, I little bits here, notes I have are like, Darcy, that's Kat
Dennings.
So I love that character, or I love that actress anyway. I thought her character as Darcy was great. Jimmy Woo, they were great comic relief, but Jimmy also showed this, other than his dry sense of humor, he showed that apparently I don't know the comic character Jimmy Woo, but apparently he goes back to the Atlas era in the 50s.
Yep.
So, I liked him. He reminded me of a character on a TV show called The Mentalist. The Asian character on there was really dry and witty, and probably not as like comic-y as Jimmy Woo, but very appealing character. And then
Yep.
Catherine Hahn, who played, she was great.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, Agnes / Agatha Harkness.
Mm-hmm.
And I know she's been in some other shows before. It was a
Parks and Rec. She's in Parks and Rec.
And
that's probably the big one for her. That's where I really knew her from. There was something else. Oh gosh, something else that she was in that I remember her from. I'm trying to remember. I'm going through her IMDb here really quick.
Filmography.
Oh, she was the voice of Doc Ock in Into the Spider-Verse.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You're kidding me?
No, Yeah. So I that's what it was. Yeah. So then she's been in lots of other stuff as well. But
me not being a Marvel guy, I still knew that Agatha Harkness was not a bad. She wasn't necessarily a good person, but she wasn't a bad person. She wasn't a villain.
No.
She mentored the Scarlet Witch, yep. And I knew that she was like the babysitter for Franklin Richards.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, they kind of took that character a different way. So which is fine, whenever people talk about it's not exactly like it's in the comics. I don't view that as an issue. Because whenever I saw the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, I was actually bored through most of that movie because really the plot was pulled directly from the pages, and it's like you knew exactly everything that was going to happen at a particular pace because it didn't do anything really original with that story. So I'm always glad when they tweak the story at least a little bit to kind of give you some surprises. Now the first episode is titled Filmed Before a Live Studio Audience. And basically the whole premise of the episode is it's in black and white, right?
Yep.
And you have Wanda and Vision basically trying to host a dinner party for Vision's boss, which was Deborah Jo Rupp, who I knew from that '70s show.
That's right.
Her character was just funny there. So. And really, you can kind of talk about the first two episodes together, because then the second episode is Don't Touch That Dial, which is also in black and white. And this is the one where, in an effort to fit in, I'm just reading this straight from IMDb, in an effort to fit in, Wanda and Vision perform a magic act in their community talent show. So we were basically getting these very quirky plays on 60s and 70s television, or I guess maybe 50s and
60s, yeah.
50s and 60s television, because it's in black and white, and their beds are there's a nightstand between the beds and all of that. But even during these episodes, you can tell that there's something sinister going on, right?
Yeah.
Because like in the first scene at the dinner party, Vision's boss starts choking, and nobody does anything to try to help him until Wanda says, Vision, help him, and in the Don't Touch That Dial episode, everything, it's like this chant for the children, so you get this clear sign that something's not as it seems. And of course we already knew that. So I enjoyed this cold black and white tribute to old style TV. I was glad after episode 2 that they didn't keep doing that and nothing else for every single episode. Yes. I was ready to, okay, we get the point. Now let's move on with the story. I don't really have anything else to say about the first 2 episodes, because other than, you had that little scene at the end where we get the first hint about Sword being there and being involved.
With the
at the end, color. The one color, you got somebody with a sword notepad and all that. So we have that scene, and then of course like the voice coming through the radio in the second episode, asking Wanda where she's at, and so I don't know, anything you wanted to say about those 2?
No, just like you, I was like, we enjoyed it, but we were like, okay, I hope that not every episode is like this. And then when episode 3 came about, you're like, okay, it's progressing, the plot's progressing. It's not just going to be someone's you know, fun fantasy about, old sitcoms and
Hmm.
just doing that. So I liked it. And, you know, I was always a big Bewitched fan. That was one of my favorite shows as a kid. So I enjoyed that second episode probably the most of the two.
Of course, and then they had all of the commercials, right? They, each episode
Or,
had a commercial where they advertised like some Hydra product or some Stark product or or whatever, which was kind of interesting. So,
yep.
um, yeah, so there's lots of little homages, I guess, to old TV. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you could definitely go into um,
I mean, the episode 3, that was the Brady Bunch. Uh, it was fashioned after Brady Bunch, wasn't it?
I'm having a hard time having not seen it super recently
I think
to remember exactly which ones were
that was the
which.
70s at least. So
Yeah.
in my mind, it was Brady Bunch. So,
So yeah, I mean, it almost had to have been. I did one of the things that was, and I guess this was in the second episode where we had that drone that kind of got knocked out of the sky, and you had this one red and
mhm.
gold that said helicopter, but
Oh,
it
yeah.
had
Yeah.
yeah, but it had the number 57 on. If I remember right, had the number 57, and that's the issue number for Vision's first appearance. Um,
Oh, cool.
yeah, so that was kind of a nice little, you talk about Easter eggs in these episodes. Um, so episode 3, which you've already kind of started talking about, is now in color, and all of a sudden we have the pregnant Wanda. Um, so Wanda's pregnancy fritzes her powers as she and Vision prepare for an accelerated delivery. So um, I don't know what to say. We're getting we get introduced to the twins,
Yeah.
and that that does tie directly back into the second Wanda, or excuse me, Scarlet Witch and Vision, or Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries, where those twins were born.
Yes.
And at that time, nobody's asking the question, well, how does an android and a mutant have kids? It
Yep.
just happens. Um, and this, ultimately in the comics, that leads to the mental imbalances that Wanda has.
Right.
Whenever she realizes that her children are just figments of her own imagination. So, um,
Episode 3 was the episode that I think really opened up um, the storyline with Geraldine slash Photon.
mhm,
Um, well, I say Photon. She wasn't really named that, but
no.
the actress
Monica Rambeau is the character.
Monica Rambeau. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I really liked her as a character. Although I think later on she was really underutilized, but maybe because they know they're going to use her more in other movies or
Hmm.
shows.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know anything else to say um, about this. They did some interesting. I guess this is maybe like the first time where they break character, because we have this scene where because like is this the episode where they're talking directly to the camera?
No,
Okay, so
no,
that's later on. Okay, so that's
that's
later on.
later on in the fashion of like the documentary style, like The Office or
Or
Modern
yeah.
Family. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so okay. So what it was there was a moment where um, Agatha or Agnes, uh, it's almost like Vision goes off script, right?
Mhm.
And she's basically asking Wanda, what is she supposed to do?
Right.
Because hey, he's off script, so let's what am I supposed to do? Just keep going or what?
Right.
So
Right.
So again, you get that feeling that there's something not quite right here.
Yeah.
Um, all right, and then the fourth episode, I'm having to jump back and forth between my synopses here. Is we interrupt this program, and now we're spending a lot less time in the TV
Yes.
universe and more time in the and you feel like you have a better feel of what's going on story wise at this point.
Right.
So Monica Rambeau, tasked with a special assignment regarding sentient weapons, goes missing. So this is the one where she shows up to Westview, and I think isn't this the one where she meets Jimmy Woo outside, and they're talking to those two police officers, and
it's when she returned to life, and
yeah.
after Blip, and she finds out that her mom had died, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess that's important to talk about. Is this all is occurring within a couple of weeks of the Blip, whenever everybody returns, right? So, but it's like they're standing there, and there's this huge sign that says Westview, and these police officers are parked right beside the sign, and they say, well, what can you tell me about Westview? It's like, I've never heard of it, and the sign and the town are right there, so it's been wiped from their minds. Yes. Well, where are you from? Well, I'm from Eastview. It's a little silly, but it's.
Yeah, this is the episode where I thought, oh my gosh, I can't wait till next week.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm trying to remember some of the bigger things that happened in episode 4. Gosh, I don't. Other than that.
It was more of like revelations. You realize that the citizens of the town Westview are really innocent players. Their lives have been hijacked, and more of the sinister, the dark aspect of the whole thing starts to come to light. So yeah, I think that's the main thing. And Monica Rambeau, really coming into the scene as Monica Rambeau and not as Geraldine in the scripted version of Wanda's town.
I don't think I have anything else to say about I guess one thing that they call the area where this is all taking place the Hex, because the shape, it's a hexagon, right? And then of course Scarlet Witch's powers were always referred to as hex powers. So I thought that was kind of nifty. So episode 5, is it episode 5?
That's the 80s and 90s setting.
Yeah. So let me jump back over here to that quick description of episode 5. Wanda addresses Vision's worries when he grows suspicious of the neighbor's strange behaviors. So now, here we've got, we have a Vision basically figuring out that, well, he's kind of already known that there was something not quite right, and now it becomes a little bit more clear that things are not right in his little world, though he doesn't have any memory of all the things that took place prior. So I'm trying to remember.
I remember hearing that this the dog that they found, they named Sparky, but wasn't Wanda's son in the comics named something Sparky, or had Sparky in the name in the Tom King version?
Oh yeah. Well, it wasn't Wanda's. See, because in the Tom King version, Vision has a purely android family.
Oh yeah, synthetic.
Yeah. So it's android, and then the only one whose name I really remember is the daughter, because she shows up later, which is Viv. Yes. But probably it's been a while since I've read that Tom King Vision story.
Yeah.
But that could
sounded familiar about that.
Okay. And I don't even remember which episode was the first one that Darcy, makes her appearance in, if it was episode 4 or episode 5. But whatever, it doesn't really matter. So, she's now, kind of in the story. And is 5 where we get the not accurate version of events where Wanda, gets Vision's body back? Or is that later on? Because it gets corrected later on. I don't remember.
I don't remember what episode that was, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I guess we should talk about that, because we end up with 2 different versions of the story about how Vision ends up in Westview. And the what is his name? The guy that's kind of, is it Director Hayward? Is he the guy that was kind of in charge? Kind of the bad guy.
Hayward, yes.
Yeah. So there's an implication that Wanda stole the Vision's body,
right,
which is how it's there inside of Westview, and they want to go get it back. But as the series progresses, we learn that whenever she was there at Sword and saw what they were doing to Vision, she actually did leave the body there, which becomes important, in episode 8 of the series. And that, so the Vision that we've been dealing with so far is just purely a manifestation of her hex powers and of the part of the Mind Stone that she actually still has. Yeah. So I don't remember, like I said, I don't remember exactly what episode that takes place in. And then episode, where are we on? 6? Mm-hmm. Okay, I gotta talk about this one a little bit. So episode 6 is the all new Halloween Spooktacular. All right, and they, for some reason, you feel like everybody they put on their costume, their quote unquote comic accurate costume, and then they have to make fun of it. Mm-hmm. All right, and this happened, okay, it's like in Luke Cage, he pulls some clothes off of a line that are the blue jeans and the yellow shirt and the chain, and Jessica Jones, gosh, I couldn't come up with the name. Whatever Patsy Walker puts on, she's trying to decide what she's going to do for a costume, and she puts on an actual Hellcat costume, and I was like, that looks really good, and then she says, no way. And I'm like, oh, come on. and here we have, Wanda comes walking down the stairs in her comic accurate Scarlet Witch costume. And they actually, for once, don't really kind of make fun of it. It's just like, hey, this is a traditional, a traditional Slovakian fortune tellers.
Right. That's what they
So I thought, okay, that's good. All right. So they don't go too far making fun of it. And we get that kind of, comics accurate costume. But then what do they do for Vision? This ridiculous green and yellow thing with, long shorts and it just looks absurd. And then they kind of do the Quicksilver thing and it just kind of looks absurd. And it's like, oh, you don't, one, the comics had a limited color palette, so you don't have to use the exact color representation from the comics, but stop making fun of these costume designs because these costume designs are what brought the character to where they are, and so stop making fun of them because that's what's paying your money for these things.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the mocking of the costumes. So all right, so if I got one peeve, they kind of built in on that. So I also guess it's good to point out that at this point we get what we come to know as Pietro, because he's fake Pietro.
Yes.
It's the Fox universe version of Quicksilver, as opposed. And
he showed up at the end of the last episode.
Into the previous episode. Now, this is one thing that I read where somebody was talking about it. That hit their whole hairdos of Pietro and then the son with super speed was supposed to be an homage to Wolverine. Whenever I watched it, I thought it was just a poorly done, because Quicksilver has, whenever you look at an older version of Quicksilver, he has these two little curls on the front that kind of spin out of his forehead. Yeah, they're horn looking things. And I just really thought it was just a poorly done version of that.
I think I'd rather it be that.
And I would too. Yeah. Or just, they're running fast and their hair got blown backwards. Right. No, it's not a Wolverine homage. And
fan theories, they're the worst.
Well, this allegedly came from like the costume designer, or what, not costume designer, but I guess somebody who worked on the Wolverine movies and worked on this. I don't know. I just,
Yeah.
Anyway, fan theories need to end, and this one was not so. I didn't care for that one, that little homage, but so, and then episode, I don't know what number.
7.
So breaking
the fourth wall.
Okay, so this is the one where they're talking to the camera, right? So I kind of thought of it more as Malcolm in the Middle.
Sure.
Myself. So Wanda's reality starts to fall apart. Monica forces her way back into Westview after she discovers what Hayward is up to, and Vision tries to get back to his wife with Darcy's help. Meanwhile, the villain of the series is revealed, complete with their own theme song. Okay. So yeah, this was the one where Vision is or Darcy. They go to the circus, right? Because
Yeah.
Wanda's hex powers had expanded and they took
Yep.
over a car lot. And that car lot became a circus.
Yep.
This was a little silly, but they're driving, back, and every time they start to make progress, like a road construction crew,
Yeah.
or
Or there'd
the
be a
light turns
school
red,
bus or kids. Yeah.
yeah, the parade or whatever. And I'm like, of course, I was glad that they actually kind of played off on it because, like, they show a scene where he's sitting outside of the truck in a chair talking to the camera. And he's like, finally, he says, "Why am I sitting here talking to you?"
Right.
And
Yeah.
then eventually he realizes, you know what, I can fly. And he just leaves
Yes.
leaves. So,
I love that episode. Yeah.
yeah. So, you were kind of sitting there. He finally did what you're kind of thinking, well, why doesn't he just fly there if he really wants to get there,
Yeah.
Um, but I guess the reveal, there was a lot of speculation. Oh, it's going to be Mephisto, or oh, it's going to be. But we've known that Agatha Harkness was in this episode pretty much from the beginning, and from the names of the characters. Um, so yeah, so she is actually revealed as the big bad, and this is, and they kind of show from the previous episodes where she was, kind of inserting herself into the story.
Hmm.
And then in 8, I guess, that's where we get, which is titled Previously On. This is where we kind of get Agatha's backstory, right, as a
Right.
witch, going back to the, I assume sometime, the Salem witch trial era, as I think is what we're led to
Oh
believe.
yeah, for sure. And her powers are to bait while they're getting ready to burn her at the stake. She absorbs the entire coven's life forces, including her mother's.
Yeah. So Agatha takes Wanda into her memories to find out how she was able to create and control Westview. Revisiting her childhood, the death of Pietro, and what happened when she returned from the snap. We finally find out how this is all possible. Now, this is something they did give us, I feel like, a really good explanation about why Wanda was living her life
Sure.
in episodic television, because whenever she, as a child, her family would sit down and watch the Bob Newhart show. And was that the main one that she always wanted to watch? Was it Bob Newhart show, or was it something else?
There was, I can't remember, but I remember that being, what that was her comfort zone.
Exactly. So that's what her family would do. And they showed them looking out the window, and there's war going on
Mhm.
outside of their window, but they're in there as a family unit watching TV. And you get the feeling that this is what they have done for a very, very long period of time. So it's like, Wanda learned English watching these TV shows. They kind of talk about when it's TV night, we speak in English. It's kind of one of the things. That they do. And then, of course, in one of these times where they're watching the show is whenever, and this ties back to Age of Ultron, which is I think now that movie is better received after WandaVision, because a lot of people didn't care for it. But now that they've tied back a little bit more with WandaVision, what happened in Age of Ultron, I think people are going to give it a little bit more of a pass.
Yeah.
And view it a little bit more positively than what they did previously. But that is why Wanda has built this world, because that's what she is pulling from her own childhood memories, is all this episodic television.
Yep.
And then the last episode, the series finale, Wanda battles against Agatha and Vision, fights his sword counterpart, which we didn't mention from episode 8, as Hayward launches an attack on Westview. So backing up to episode 8, final scene, we see the actual physical Vision, right, who is now completely white. So they have finished reassembling Vision. So we learned that Wanda didn't actually steal the body. She just created the Vision with the power of the Mind Stone and her own mutant ability. So we have this white Vision. That episode.
But you know what? Scott? I'd never seen the mid-credit scene. That's why I was so confused in episode 9. I'm like, where did this white Vision come from?
Why you don't fast forward to the end and look for it? Did you see both the final scenes of episode 9?
I didn't have control of the remote, obviously, and I didn't even challenge it. So I'm like, oh, it's TV, it's not a movie. But
okay. Oh yeah, there were 2 scenes in the final episode. Did you see both of the scenes in the final episode? No. Oh my goodness.
So I'm going, like I said, I'm going back to watch it all.
All right. So telling a story here. So that comic book, West Coast, or I guess was it
West
Avengers?
Coast
West Coast
Avengers, yeah.
Avengers. I can't remember if they had already changed it. They changed the name from a West Coast Avengers to Avengers West Coast, and I can't
Oh,
remember which issue number they changed the name on. That went from being basically $1 book to copy selling for $200 overnight.
oh man.
I had the first 50 issues up on eBay for $80, and they were still there the next day because you only have so much space in an eBay listing, and I got to like issue 30, and I had to put dash 50, so I didn't specifically list issue number 45, and I had
Oh,
them up there. Yeah, I had them up there for $80, and they'd been online for. It's one of those listings where it says this has been online for 16 or more months and nobody's bought it. All of a sudden, boom, because it was selling for 200 and I sold my first 50 issues for $80. So anyway, so yeah, that book has to have come back down to something, more
yeah.
reasonable. But I guess they left that character open for a future appearance in the Marvel Cinematic or
Look,
another
and
episode.
he looked really malevolent. I like that the
Yeah.
fight scene. Yeah. Yeah.
I did like how them being creatures of logic, how they kind of resolved their difference, instead of
Yeah.
fighting about it. They
I,
said, hey,
I,
let's think about this,
yeah.
you
That was a
know.
great way to resolve
Yeah.
that. Yep.
And I guess that's what is it? I can't remember what the name of the ship was. Oh, the like ship of Thebes or something like
Right.
that. Yeah, that they used as the story. If you replace all the wood in the
Sure.
ship,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
is it still
Yeah.
whatever that is? So
Yeah.
I thought that
Right.
was a very clever way. We didn't have to have this knockdown, drag out fight, and I'm actually really glad that they didn't because we kind of got the big fight between Wanda and Agatha Harkness, and to have another big extended fight would have just been, I think, too much. And there was supposed to be, I guess this got cut. There was supposed to have been another scene where Agatha's rabbit, was it a rabbit that she carried around with her? Yeah,
Yeah.
actually turns into like a giant creature, and Pietro and the two kids
Oh.
fight the
Yeah.
giant rabbit, but they pulled that. And I think I understand why, because there's been that much more, fighting that was going on.
Right.
But
It was a fight heavy episode. Yeah.
yeah, so they kind of focus on the fight that actually really, really mattered. Um, and I think this is good that they left some things that can be used in the future for either the cinematic universe, or if they do, want to come back to these characters in a second season, then they have that option. I
Hmm.
never I never expected, like, as soon as it was over, people were asking, well, when is this going to be renewed? And it's like it never occurred to me that this was going to be a multi-season series. I
Right.
always just assumed it was just like a limited series where they're going to tell this story and they're going to be done, not that they need another season of WandaVision. So,
Right.
um, but I don't know. I thought this, you know, overall, this whole thing, felt true to the comics. Whenever you look at the pieces that they took from the Vision and Scarlet Witch, and the pieces that they took, from even House of M, where Scarlet Witch is unbalanced, and from Tom King's, the Vision. I felt it was really, true to the comics, and overall, I really enjoyed this series. So I definitely got to sit down and watch it again straight through.
Yeah. Me
May have to
too.
do it after Winter Soldier's done, or not Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier's done. But it is, it's gonna happen pretty soon. So
Yeah. I mean, really what wrapped it up for me was the goodbye, Wanda saying goodbye to Vision and the
mm,
twins. Man, that was a good scene. Very emotional, and
mm,
it really summed up my feelings about the show. Had a lot of
okay.
heart.
All right. Well, since this is a spoiler-filled episode, so in that final scene, we see this, peaceful lake with this, a cabin beside the lake, and Wanda's out on the front porch drinking her coffee, and then
Studying the Darkhold.
well, not she's not. She walks back in, and they pan into the
Oh,
house,
yeah.
and inside the house is Wanda in her what they call dark Scarlet Witch. It's just a darker version.
Oh, that's what I meant. Yeah, right.
Costume where she has a presence outside, but her is there studying the Darkhold and manipulating things around her, and you hear the voices of the twins, asking for.
That's the part I didn't. That's the part I didn't see, but I read about, and I'm like, oh, so.
Yeah. So they, now for me, I feel like that's supposed to tie into Doctor Strange 2.
Right.
Not that it's supposed to tie into a second season of WandaVision. So,
right. Okay.
Anyway, that's just my take on it. So,
man, it's all tying together really well.
So I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts or comments on WandaVision?
I'd say it's set for the Disney Plus Marvel shows. It set the bar really high, and I hope Falcon and Winter Soldier meet it, if not exceed it, maybe in a different way. So they're definitely doing well.
Good deal. So, all right. Well, I guess that brings us to the close of another episode of the Campus Comics Cast. So, Mike, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, where would they do that at?
Wait, let me look it up. It's at Mike Atchison5 on Twitter. Yeah.
And you can find me, Scott Reed, at birdcomics.com. All my contact information is there, and links to my eBay store and Facebook page and such. And of course, don't forget to talk to Mike No at Campus Comics, located at 816 East Main Street, Suite B in Carbondale, Illinois. And hopefully you're listening to our previews episodes, and you are considering becoming a pull customer with Campus Comics. So if there's something, from one of the previous episodes that we talked about, or if you need to get books graded, looking for models to build, Mike's got all that in stock, and if he doesn't have it in stock, if he can get it for you, he'll be glad to order it. And that brings us to a close, and we will talk to you soon.
So I don't forget. That would be, we've already, that's the only time we've had to do an episode. That's the only time we've had to redo, yeah. And I still don't think I blame Skype still, but that's the one time that, I blame Dan. He jinxed it by not being here, so. Yeah. I mean, he's up there acting like he's got so much to do with his new store. I guarantee he does. He has I don't think he realized how busy he'd be. In a good way. Yeah, I haven't actually talked to him. I tried, but I didn't get through, and then he texted, said it was a good day. Good. So, all right. Okay, I guess are you ready to go? I think I am. Any last throat clears or anything you want to get out of the way? Oh, I'll try to mute if I have to clear my throat. Yeah, I have dried mangoes here. I just realized they're very chewy, so I'll probably need to mute whenever I'm chewing on those. Okay. And I did press record. I'm just double checking myself. It is recording. Okay, all right. Okay, all right.